Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lisa Smith. I use she, her pronouns, the Executive Director of the Washington State Microenterprise Association. Really glad to be here. And I want to welcome two staff members here. Catherine, would you introduce yourself, and then Cherie?
Hi, my name is Catherine Borgeson, Grant Specialist with WSMA, and I also use she, her pronouns.
Everyone, good to see everyone. My name is Cherie Reeves-Spare. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm here with WSMA.
Thank you, both of you very much. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A box down below or in the chat. We are going to go through this slide deck very judiciously. We're not going to spend too much time. We wanted to give you a very general overview. Everything you need is actually in the guidelines. And so we're going to want you to spend a goodly amount of time on those guidelines. This is a way for us to give you an overview about the components of the RFP, answer any specific questions at the end. We're going to do a brief walkthrough in the portal, and it'll just help you, better understand how to approach your application. All right. So Cherie, are we ready, Catherine, to start?
Yes, and I just shared my screen. Please let me know if you don't see it.
Looks good. All right. So welcome. Today, we are going over the Spring 2025 Urban Grant Information Session and Portal Walkthrough. We're going to be just moving through each section to have you all better understand how the components are unfolding in the guidelines and what our expectations are for this grant opportunity. Basically, we're going through the grant overview, the budget request. We'll look at information, the application questions, anticipated economic outcomes, the criteria for review, our expectations, and then the Q&A. And then we'll follow up at the end just by going over the portal walkthrough. Okay, next slide. So let me just see here. All right. So this is really not intended to be a full-on grant program. We are usually having much larger amount of funds. This is a very small amount of funds, very quick deployment, total of 80,000. So there are going to be very few small grants in the amounts of 20,000 and 10,000. But we do have a priority in this round to be focused on manufacturing, construction, and childcare companies. These grants are open to any businesses, but that's our emphasis area for this grant cycle. And this includes businesses that are small scale and even gig workers. Next slide. So just so we all are on the same page, our focus at WSMA is helping to lower the barriers to business ownership for microenterprises, and those are for companies with 5 or fewer employees. And that includes gig workers, sole proprietors, and typically those companies with financial need of 50,000 or less. And to be really clear, if you're a business in this room, this grant program is not, you're not eligible. This is only for nonprofit organizations, and specifically entrepreneur support organizations. And these could be CDFIs, nonprofit organizations, trade associations, those that are offering business training, technical assistance, financing to gig workers, or cooperatives, or rural entrepreneurs, or entrepreneurs with disabilities, or those who've been historically marginalized. And then the last part to really be clear about, this is for urban-based businesses. And so these are for these urban counties or communities that have 20,000 people in them, and specifically in Benton, Clark, King, Kitsap, Pierce, Snohomish, Spokane, Thurston, and Whatcom counties. And just basic eligibility, you need to have your 501c3. Unfortunately, no academic institutions are allowed. If there's a foundation attached to that academic institution, that is makes the applicant eligible. In order to be eligible, you do need to be a resource partner on Evergreen BizLink or have a profile submitted, and you need to be facile or have experience providing business training, technical assistance, or financing to very small businesses. So this is not to typical nonprofits. In general way, this is specifically for nonprofits that help very small businesses. And you have to have a track record of doing this business technical assistance so that your application will be rated higher. Next slide. So we have clarified more clearly, more deliberately, what we mean by training. So the three areas of funding here are for training, technical assistance, or financing. And we've broken down training in two ways. Training workshops that are in a series, we refer to those as business training series, where there's one workshop that leads to the next. It's intended for a cohort. There's an expectation of businesses attending all of those sessions. That's a business training series. And then we have training programs that are in the form of a workshop. It's just a one-off, or you may have a couple of different workshops, but they're not intended for a business owner to attend all and be expected to attend all. One-off workshops. So training is the first section, then technical assistance, and this could be technical assistance for accessing federal grants or loans, or tax, or marketing, business coaching, writing business plans, troubleshooting. So that's the technical assistance, and typically that's one-on-one or in small groups, but it's where you're actually working with that business on their particular needs. Different than training, where you're actually delivering information and information and training support. Then the last category is really assisting small businesses with accessing financing. And this could be helping them get a microloan or helping them apply for state grants. It could be helping them prepare their business for accessing funding. So that last part is a really essential piece, but it may be that your nonprofit doesn't do that yet. That's okay. If you refer to financing partners, that is one aspect of providing that financial assistance. Next slide. Okay, so just to be really clear, these funds are for you to cover the costs that your organization expends in order to provide this training and technical assistance. So that includes staff, partial rent, or renting a facility where you're doing the training program, paying consultants to provide that expertise or technical assistance, your training costs, your outreach costs, any translation or education that you need for interpretation of your classes, is that translation, all that is covered under this grant. And just your work in helping businesses stay in operation. Next slide. So these funds cannot be used to pay for any equipment, no copiers, no laptops, vehicles, furniture, or technical infrastructure like fees for software. We also need to make sure you understand that none of these funds can go directly to businesses. It can only go to your nonprofit and your expenses supporting those businesses. And then finally, this can only be funding your staff wages. So any of the benefits or FICA and withholding, all of that you need to cover with another revenue source in your nonprofit. Only wages can be paid for with WSMA funds and with this grant. Okay, so here's the guidelines, and please, you know that I know that we know that you know that this is a very short amount of time, and we regret that. And not every organization is going to be able to produce competent training programs in this short amount of time. And there's a lot of nonprofits who will be able to. So we want you to really discern whether this is the right grant for you. Is this the right time? Is this the right cycle for you? It may be that you're interested in applying at a future grant. So just make sure that you're doing that discernment about whether this is the right time for you to apply. But basically, we announced it last week. Friday, we opened the portal. Today, we're having the information session and portal walkthrough. On April 4th, the applications will actually be due at 5 p.m. We're not going to accept any that are late. So do yourselves and us a favor in getting it in early. And just also know we're here to provide some support and technical assistance in the lead up for that deadline so that you don't hesitate to ask questions. And then April 23rd, you will be notified, yay or nay, whether you're funded or not. And it could happen beforehand, but no later than that date. And then we'll negotiate your contract, you'll get the work done, you'll fill out your final report on June 23rd, and then you will be done. We'll talk about how the funds get expended before then. Catherine, did you want to share something?
Oh, no.
Okay, no problem. So here is the RFP process, basically. You're going to submit your final application on or before April 4th by 5 p.m. We're going to be doing a review. Does it meet minimum expectations? Do you have all the components in there? If you need to send it by mail, you can, but it's very rare. It's easier to do it by email, but just know that that option is there.
And this is where just to note, and more details will come at the portal walkthrough after the Q&A at the end of this webinar. But all of these resources that we've been referencing, you can find on our website. You go to the homepage with the R services and then select the grant opportunities. We'll take you directly to the RFP. There's linked files to download that we'll be talking about further on in this presentation, including the guidelines, the 2025 budget fund request form, the Excel form that you upload to your application. There's a couple tools, like a Word document and a PDF template of just the application questions, which we encourage you to use if you want to collaborate with your team, and you can all work on all the application questions, regardless if you have your portal application started or not, and then you can copy and paste those answers into the portal. So to access all of that, this is our website. You can get to the grant portal by clicking on the upper right, our grant portal, any button that you see apply now, and this will become more clear in the demo at the end. And once you do click the apply now, it'll take you to our login page for the grant portal, which we'll get into more at the end. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Catherine. And I just want to clarify that your application by or before April 4th needs to come in and be submitted through the portal. I may have misspoken by saying that it can be by email. No, it's you need to submit the application in the portal. Okay, I hope that clarifies things. And thank you for that clarification, Cherie. So your application basically has this information, your contact information. You'll have a completed, you will have answered all the questions. You will have an Excel spreadsheet, this form that we've put in there with all the formulas. You'll articulate your goals for who and when and how you will reach these entrepreneurs. And those numbers and the economic outcomes will match your narrative. And then you'll have these attachments, the budget, your income, your organizational budget, your profit and loss statement, and your 501c3 letter. And we are asking for you to include your organizational budget from 2024. And the reason why is we are only able to fund nonprofits, the amount of funds that we can apply if you're funded can only represent 20% of your overall budget. So that's the reason why we're asking for your organizational budget. So I can answer any questions further about that at the end.
And Lisa, I believe the guidelines say the organization budget is for the current or 2025 year, and then the PLI,
Oh, the
P&L
profit and loss statement.
is the 2024 calendar year.
Okay, well, we need to clarify that because that's really important. Okay, so let's just keep going. All right, to make sure that we're really clear that you will, all funds need to be spent. Your program has to be delivered, all your recording, all your tracking of your services, everything needs to be in a final report to us by June 23rd. So if you have a worry that you may not be able to get work done before that time, it might not be a good application to apply on. If you feel like you can do it, then this might be a good application to apply for. Let's see. Okay, and just so you know, let's say you apply by the 4th, you make it through our criteria, we announce that you are funded by the 23rd or before of April. We will negotiate the contract with you, and then we will send 80% of that grant to you right away within 20 days of signing their contract. And then the remaining 20% will come to you after we've approved your final report. That's just because it's such a short amount of time, and we want to make sure the funds get to you as soon as possible. Okay, so we have the budget request, and we want to just make sure that we're as clear as we can be that these are going to be in small grants of 10,000 or 20,000, depending on what folks apply for, how much they're going to be able to accomplish in that period of time. And so here is again, I just want to make sure that these grants will, the total fund request must not be more than 20% of your organization's total budget for the last calendar year. So if you made, you just need to make sure that you have a big enough budget to apply for the 20,000 basically, or big enough for the 10,000. And if you're an organization that has an embedded entrepreneur support organization in it, so for example, there are community action agencies in the state, but they have a division or a small part of their program that is an ESO or an entrepreneur support organization, it would be that budget that would be what you would use in order to determine that 20% portion. Next slide. Okay, so to figure out whether or not you should apply for the 10,000 or for the 20,000, if you're applying for the 10,000, you really need to be, you have at least a year of experience working as an entrepreneur support organization, and have existing relationships with historically marginalized communities. Like if you're thinking you're applying and then you're going to go out and reach business owners and never have had a relationship with them, it would not be as successful as those who already have an existing relationship with small business in their communities. For $10,000 in this time period, our expectation is that you're going to reach at least 35 unduplicated microenterprises during this grant period. And also, we just want to make sure that you're collaborating with business partners. You have places or partners that you refer businesses to for financing. You have a connection with other business support services. We also want to make sure that you can track what you're doing. So if you're going to provide 5 workshops at different locations for 2 hours, you're able to track who comes. You're able to understand what you're delivering, how many hours that'll take, so that the quality and the expertise that you're providing to these businesses is understandable and that you can tell the story about that at the end. And if you're applying for this grant to serve one of those key priority areas, whether it's childcare work businesses or small-scale manufacturing or construction businesses, you will want to make sure that you can effectively demonstrate your expertise and how you understand how you can demonstrate your expertise for this $10,000 level. Let's go to the next slide. So similar to the 10,000, for the 20,000, you need at least 3 years of experience with quality business training and technical assistance. And you have to have like the experience of a dedicated program serving businesses. Also, be able to describe your expertise in serving childcare companies, small-scale manufacturers, and construction businesses. And for the 20,000, we will want you to be able to reach 65 unduplicated businesses. And we can go into more detail about that. Again, we will want you to have existing relationships with businesses that have been historically marginalized, that you will be able to have, that you already have an existing way to document what you're doing, your internal reporting system. We want you to be able to have already existing relationships with your Small Business Development Center or your Economic Development Council or your library or those partners that are working with you to support small businesses. And, you know, this is our expectation is that you have expertise and you can describe the innovation and expertise that you have serving these specialized communities. Next slide. Okay, so we changed this year. We used to offer our fund request form in a Word document. Now it's in an Excel spreadsheet with all the formulas in there. Really spend time thinking about what you're able to do, what staff time it's going to take for you, what consultants you're going to bring in, if there are facility costs. This is really a straightforward document where we will want you to spend time and energy articulating with detail how you will spend the money. And we'll ask you to, be able to do a budget justification in the document. It's pretty straightforward. All the formulas are pretty clear, so it adds up. You'll be able to track and document, as you develop your budget, where you can spend or have yet funds to be able to spend. And then we just want to make sure that you are not asking for funds for expenses that are not authorized. If there isn't sufficient explanation or justification in the budget, it's going to be harder for the reviewers to be able to approve your application. So when you submit your budget, just make sure there's enough clarity about how you're spending those funds and enough detail so they don't have to work too hard in understanding what you're going to be doing. And then when you're done, you're going to upload that budget request form into the portal where it requests that. All right, now we're going to get into the application questions. So here is where we want you to shine. We want you to share why your organization is compelling, why you have a track record, why the experience you have in serving these particular businesses, and any background or specific examples you have in describing why you and your organization is perfect for this grant. Question 2 is just to make sure that you are in an urban community. These are very unique. These funds are for just urban centers. So just articulate what county you're in. And then if you have expertise, we want to know if you're able to reach particular communities around the state in these urban centers. You can indicate those on the portal. If you're an executive director, a person of color, it would be helpful for us to know that. We want to make sure that the funds WSMA has is reaching a full range of nonprofit leaders and organizations in the state. And then finally, we want you to help us understand if you have expertise or experience working with veterans or women-owned businesses or entrepreneurs with disabilities, and you have the list here. Question 6 is really about describing and documenting documenting how you're going to be providing the services for these businesses. Are they in a webinar? Are they in a multi-session series? Is it training and technical assistance? Are you a microlender and you're helping entrepreneurs get ready for financing? This is where we really want you to provide significant detail. And then just a quick note, anything you describe in a narrative, like we're going to reach 35 businesses in this community, you're going to, with a training program or technical assistance, you're going to want to have that mirror exactly into your economic outcomes, because both are important for the reviewers. Hearing the story is great, but we also want to make sure that the economic outcomes can be effectively measured as well. Okay, so as an example, WSMA is a unique organization. We are not like typical funders. We really want to build the skills, the training capacity, and the technical capability of nonprofits to serve businesses. And the way we do that is to understand how you provide this service. We know that businesses learning new topics like cash flow projections or really sophisticated understanding of a profit and loss statement takes time. It takes energy, it takes training. And so that's why we pay so close attention to training and technical assistance. So when you put in your example, this is a way that you can describe it. So for example, a nonprofit could say, we're going to provide 3 one-hour orientations and 2 3-hour workshops providing toolkits for helping 25 construction contractors each become established. So this is offered to you as examples of how we want you to describe what you're going to be doing. This granular expectation is to help you and to help us. So the next example is provide 3 2-hour training workshops for 15 businesses each on federal and state tax for just starting or established micro businesses. And it says how many hours, how many businesses. Now that's an expectation. We know that not every time will you reach that many, or you may reach more. This is just to help us understand your expertise and your ability to reach the businesses you want to serve with these grant funds. Another example is, a training series with 8 3-hour sessions for 16 entrepreneurs, and then 1 2-hour workshop. It's just that degree of specificity helps the reviewers know what you're intending, how long you're intending to do it, and to whom you intend to provide these services. Next slide.
And I would just add that there's a list of maybe 9 or so more examples included on the program guidelines, as well as on the application in the grant portal. And you'll know these examples are trying to also explain the subtle differences between that training series and the workshops. If you take a look at the third point, the 8 3-hour sessions for 16 entrepreneurs, because this is a training series of a cohort of 16 entrepreneurs, the businesses are counted as 16 versus the 1 2-hour workshop for 25. There's only one workshop for 25 businesses, so that's 25 businesses. But if you looked at the first point where there's a couple different types of workshops at 25 construction contractors each, that's 25 times 5 is 125 businesses, because workshops are counting the attendees. And I don't want to confuse this. It's explained and shown later slides. It's just these examples are helpful to look at when you're wondering why a training series, you're not counting those, you're counting the cohort of 16 entrepreneurs followed by workshops. Those businesses do duplicate per session there.
Thank you, Catherine, for that clarification. And again, go back to look at those grant guidelines. There's more detail in there. And then this is really kind of a summation of what is optimal for the reviewers. It describes roughly the timeline, where the sessions are going to be handled, what kind of training, what kind of technical assistance, highlighting some of the topics that'll be covered, how long each of the sessions are. It doesn't just help the reviewers, it helps you plan all of the details of the delivery of your services in a way that's really trackable. Okay, let's keep going. Yeah, and just this is another example that our colleague Jillian Marshall included in a prior training. Really, if it's not specific, if it's not timely, if you can't measure it, if it's not relevant to this business and it's not time bound, it's not going to be as an attractive application for the review. So just bear in mind these categories of criteria that are really important when you describe what you're going to do. Okay, so the economic outcomes are important on so many levels. It seems tedious, it seems difficult to understand, but it's really important for us to be able to understand how your services are going to be delivered, one, and then to whom, but also what is the impact? And although you can't exactly know for sure how many jobs will be created, how many jobs will be saved, this is your best understanding in this time, based on your experience, based on what you've been able to achieve in the past, and the time period that's available now for you to do your best estimate. So these are your anticipated jobs created, jobs saved, businesses started. And so when you provided, you're going to say, we're going to do a training series, then you share with us, is it 4 sessions, 6 sessions? Are they 2 hours each? This is where you give that granular detail. So you're going to say it in your narrative and you're going to put it in your economic outcomes. Next slide. Okay, same thing, webinars, technical assistance, and financing. So just a note, we're not going to penalize anybody if you didn't get exactly what you anticipated, but we have an expectation that you're going to say, you're doing what you say you're going to do, and the outcomes will be as best you can based on the funds you receive to get the work done. Next slide.
There's also a section for demographics of those to be served. But if any of these you don't provide or don't collect the info, you put the 0, just put a 0 instead of a number in your application.
Thank you. That was really helpful. All right. So just so you know, the selection criteria is pretty straightforward. You're going to demonstrate through your writing the quality of your programs, what you're intending to achieve. You're going to describe your ability, your experience, the expertise you have in one of those areas, whether it's small scale manufacturing or construction or childcare, and also your capacity to effectively work with diverse communities. So we'll do a preliminary assessment, and then those applications that meet that minimum criteria will go through the review process with our reviewers. And then all of you will be notified by email that you were funded or not funded by the 23rd or before. And, just to clarify, each one is independently evaluated. And we just want to make sure there's good geographic mix. And the reviewers do a really good job of understanding what you're intending and following through in their analysis of who should get funded. All right. Our expectations of you, if you do get funding and you are selected, we're going to work with you about your scope of work. We'll execute a contract with you. We'll make sure you are clear and we are clear about the timeline of you achieving the goals of your grant. These will be outlined in your scope of work. And we will be requiring you to just give us a W-9 and a payment processing form so we can get these funds sent to you electronically. For new grantees, we'll have you go through an orientation process so that you're clear about our expectations. If you've already applied to WSMA, you know where we're going with this. But if you're new, there's an orientation for you. And then we will expect you to be either a partner on Evergreen BizLink or at least have a form submitted, a profile submitted on Evergreen BizLink. We'll send you out a template. You'll complete the template. You'll write your report. You'll submit it by the 23rd of June. And then you'll have to make sure that you have your liability coverage pretty ready and in place in case we need to ask for it. I see a question. Go ahead, Sheree.
Yeah, Emma is sounding like she cannot hear you right now. Is anybody else having difficulty hearing today's presentation? Sounds like Monica can hear. Okay. Okay, thank you so much, Emma. Thanks. Sorry about the interruption.
No problem. No problem. So just getting your final report due on the 23rd. You don't have to submit evidence of your insurance. You just have to have it. If we call on you and we need to see it, then you'd be able to provide that documentation. And then, the biggest thing is staying in good communication with us. We want to make sure you're doing okay. And if there's any problems that come up, we'll work it out. We'll work through any problem solving that you have once you get the grant. Next slide. Okay. As I mentioned, you'll submit your final report. In that report, you're really going to share what you learned, what were your successes, what were your challenges, ways that you collaborated, any stories of businesses that you served. And you'll have to really identify your consultants, who you consulted with, how much were they funded for, what did they do? And that'll be pretty clear in the guidelines. All right, now we have an opportunity for questions. Go for it, Sheree.
Lisa, we have a series of questions in that document. If you'd like to start going through them, I have all of them tracked. So if you'd like to start going through those.
I think you should start with the first one. Go for it.
Okay, so our first question is coming to us. Is it worth applying if our executive director does not identify as BIPOC, but is a woman?
Absolutely, it does. This is just an indicator. It's no preference. It's just helping us understand. Yeah, definitely.
Great. Our next question, and these are some of the eligibility questions that we're seeing. Just to be clear, can these funds be used for an existing program? And I did reach out and say yes, but you'd like to confirm that?
Yeah, definitely. Now, by existing program, what we mean is if you have funding from another grant and you're doing programming for businesses right now, then you don't want to apply because none of the funds from WSMA can pay for programming that you already have funding for. Right. So whatever you submit has to be new project, new work, a new community, new geographic region, a new type of entrepreneur. I hope that was helpful.
Great. Our next one is, can a nonprofit already being funded by WSMA apply for this program?
Yes. Yes. And yes, that is true.
Mm-hmm. Great. Then we're going to go to, and I see the ones in the chat box. Please put them in the Q&A. We'd really appreciate that. Next one is a program question. Can this grant be used to pay for a child care center, specifically lease or architect work?
Great. Thank you for that question. And I'm here on the document now, so I appreciate you helping me get there. Great. Yeah, none of these funds can be for brick and mortar, for building, for real estate, for equipment. Now, if you're working with a child care center that is wanting to expand or, build up their business capacity to do more, then you can provide your services to that child care center that would be eligible. So if you apply, so the question here is if you apply for a priority area, meaning an urban center, can we serve other types of businesses also to make up the 65 business minimum? Absolutely. So it would be hard maybe to reach 65 childcare businesses alone, but yeah, a mix of childcare and other kinds of businesses, that would be fine for sure. Another question is, we've been assisting so many businesses for the last 5 years. Can we pick the businesses from our community where we have built trust, or does it have to be new businesses? Really good question. I want to make sure I answer that question right. So we're gonna answer that in the FAQs. Basically, you want to open this up to businesses in your community. If you are already serving them right now, that's one thing. If you haven't served them for many years and you want to re-up and connect with them, that's definitely an eligible activity. The next question I'm going to go into is really understanding what we mean by unduplicated. And what that means for us is making sure that the businesses you're serving are new in a respect. So if you are applying for funding from this particular grant program, we have an expectation that the unduplicated businesses are new to your program, and that if a business is new coming to a new workshop that you're proposing for these grant funds, that business, if it goes through an orientation and it goes through the training and it gets technical assistance, you have touched that one business 3 times. That business would be considered one unduplicated business, even though you serve them multiple times. By unduplicated, we mean serving one business for at least one service. I hope that answers your question. And I can also, I don't know if you want to add to that, Cherie? Okay, good. So there's a question here. Could you remind me which counties are covered under the grant? And I don't know if, Catherine, if you want to answer that question. I can also do it. Let me see. We're going to come back.
Lisa,
Yeah.
I can give you this one. Our counties are Benton, Clark, King, Kitsap, Pierce, Snohomish, Spokane, Thurston, and Whatcom, and I'll put it in the chat.
Wonderful. And it's also in the grant guidelines.
Yes, it is.
I didn't realize
okay.
that. I apologize. I didn't realize I was muted on that one.
No worries, no worries. Okay, here we're going to go to some budget questions. So when does the eligible expense time period start? Really good question. You can start charging against the grant the moment you have signed that contract. So don't try to do work until the contract is signed, and then after that, you can start spending the funds. So question, for embedded organizations, the business serving aspect is part of a larger organization that has other services. Do any of the requested financial statements have to be for just the business department only? If so, which ones? Okay. I'm not sure I understand the question, but if your organization does a lot of different things, but you're applying to WSMA for the business services, then it's that budget that you predicate the amount you're applying for. And the financial statements or your organizational budget will refer to the area of your organization that is focused on business services. And you can reach out and I can give more detail with you on that. Okay, there's a question here for the budget. What if our year ends on 7/1? Oh, ends on 6/30. Yeah, good question. So essentially you're in the middle of your budget year. And I would say we just need to understand what portion of the 20% you're applying for, what your organizational budget is, so we can understand what the 20% would be referencing. I would recommend that you do it on your calendar year 2024 budget. Or in the most recent 12-month period. So March or April 1st of 2024 through March 30th of 2025. And just take that. You can do it pretty easily in a QuickBooks, whatever the most recent 12-month period is. I hope I answered that question. So 20% of total funds will not be distributed until all the programs have been delivered completely. That's correct. So Emma, let's say your project gets funded and you're notified on the 23rd. We go through the process of completing your contract. It gets signed. You begin doing your training program. After the contract gets signed, we're pretty quick about getting that 80% of the funds to you so you can begin doing the work. And we're very quick about getting the funds to you once we've approved your final report. All the funds will be to you by the 30th of June. So everything will be paid for on our part, assuming your report gets finalized and submitted on time and it's approved, you'll be paid by the 30th of June. All right. How many grants are you giving out at each level? And there are 80,000 total going this cycle. Is it correct that if you apply for a 20,000 level, you will only be considered at that level and not be potentially granted the 10? Great question, Emil. Yeah, that's true. So this is really important. If you have the chops and the capacity and the experience to apply for a 20,000, go for it. But it's going to be pretty competitive. So there's only 80,000 available, so it could be a combination of 20,000, the rest 10. We don't know yet. We don't know who's submitting grants. So we can't answer that question. Hope that's clear. All right. Does money spent on the front end cover workshops in a series that are started before June? And part 3 of the series is completed after June. Is that allowable? Okay, I know that we are getting close to the end of our time period, but what I'll say is that work has to be done by the 23rd of June. So whatever you do, whatever planning you need to do, we're assuming you're high touch with the businesses you're serving. It all has to be done by that June deadline. Okay, program-related expenses. How about the small amount of staff expenses for bookkeeping? Yeah, I'm gonna wait on that question. I want to just check in with Catherine. What I wonder how many more do we have? Oh, we're good. Catherine, can I just answer a couple more questions before you go into?
I think we should get through the questions and I can do a pretty quick walkthrough.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So Ventures, for example, is starting a new business basics course next month, and we're currently enrolling. We also have micro and nano businesses that are going to go through the advanced courses. If we're awarded, would we be able to use those funds to help both courses? Well, the question is, do you already have funding to put on those courses? If you already have funding to put them on, then you wouldn't apply for WSMA. It would be for programming that you don't otherwise have funding for. Here's another question. Are there any revenue limits for a small nonprofit? We have 4 employees providing technical assistance and training to both large and small companies. No revenue limits, meaning like if you're like a billion-dollar nonprofit, that's going to be taken into consideration, of course. But we want nonprofits that are providing unique or important technical assistance to very small businesses to be applying for these funds. Hope I answered that question. All right. The fund request form lists budget request options of 10 or 20. Are those the only available choices? Yes. Or are there an option to custom dollar amount? Nope. Those are the only amounts. If you can either do it for 10 or 20, apply. Okay, reporting. Do the economic outcomes need to occur before the 23rd of June? Yes. That is correct. The next question is, how will impact reporting be assessed since there will only be a very condensed timeline? For example, how do you know jobs created? Really good question. We're going to ask you to do your best in understanding the impact of these training programs on the businesses that you're serving. So we don't know exactly, you don't know exactly, you're going to do your best understanding of the impact of these funds. All right. We will be putting a slide deck together with a review of this with this video, and we'll be sending it out. It'll be available on our website. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out. Go ahead, Cherie.
I don't have any. Did you want to go back to that one question?
Oh, I noticed your hand was up. Sorry about that.
Oh, it's still up. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I think this would be a really good time to go to Catherine for the portal
Great.
walkthrough.
Thank you. I just started sharing my screen with our website, wamicrobiz.org. So as we mentioned earlier, I'm trying to get us to the point out some resources, but then get us to the grant portal. On the right corner, if I were to click that button, that will take me to the portal. And this is on the upper right hand corner, there's that orange circle with the stick figure that if you were to click that, that enters the accessibility menu and the translation services. So I would go another place to point to our services, grant opportunities. This, if you haven't looked at it yet, provides all the full guidelines. We'll post the FAQs that come out of this webinar. Keep scrolling down to these links if you want a PDF of the guidelines. These are the application templates if you wanted to type your answers in and then paste them into the portal. Fund request form is one place to get to, is to download, is under the grant material tier. You'll see them linked in other places too. If I were to go to the sidebar, grant guidelines, like this grant portal login, there's different places to get there. So I'll choose this apply now button. This is hopefully, oh, well, I'm already logged in. I will, because we have 5 minutes, I'm gonna kind of just note that if you are a new organization, always feel comfortable to reach out to me with portal questions and I can get you set up. You'll want to start with the register here, where you will enter in ideally an EIN number or type out the whole organization name because you're searching for your organization, which is linked to this IRS database, and that will create an org profile in our system for you to log in. If you're a returning applicant, so you've been a previous grantee or you've submitted an application for funding, you already have, the organization already has a profile. If you have staff changes, contact, email me and we can add you as a user account to that organization. If you haven't logged in a while, you can always trigger on that logged out page a password reset. And sometimes it will ask you to do that temporary verification code. But once you get logged in, the dashboard will have the funding opportunity, which is where we would start to create a draft application. Before I click that, on the upper right-hand corner is your first letter initial of your first name. Actually, where did I? Nope, I wanted to go to my profile. Just kidding. That's how I sign out. My profile is on the dashboard and the organization profile. This information gets pulled from when you register. So if you needed to change any of the information that I showed in the application, one place to go is these profiles. So I'm going to go back to the home page dashboard. You can either click the home button or WSMA logo on the left corner brings you back. Funding opportunity to create an application. Here it is, apply now. And then just click save draft and that will populate all the information and you'll refresh. So first step is save draft. This on the contact, these tabs, the contact information tab is what I was referring to. This information pulls from the organization profile or your user account profile. And if you needed to change any of this information, you can't edit it in the application. You actually need to go to the profile. And then when you reopen the application, you click save draft, everything refreshes. I'm going to go back to the home page because maybe pretend I started entering in things and I want to leave the application. And I'm doing this because once I've started an application, you'll want to go to in progress. please don't go back to funding opportunities where you would create a second draft application. If you do that, I will be reaching out to delete one of those versions, and it just creates lots of, we don't want application information splitting up. So once you've created a draft, go to your in progress, and this is how you would reopen it to continue editing. I'm going to jump to the project information. With 2 minutes left to spare, I'm not going to go through the full application, but these were the questions we walked through. If I start typing, you'll see the words left. There's a word limit. If you went over when you submit, you'll get an error message to get within the limit. You can either tab over by navigating at the high level tabs, or there's these little next and back at the bottom, right above those buttons, the save draft submit buttons next. So going to the funding request, you select which level you're applying for. This is where you would drop in a file, the completed Excel fund form that you downloaded from the website. You could drag and drop the file in, and if you were to hover that file over the drop, you would drop it in, and it would look. It's pretty intuitive, but you can also select this browse files, where it would bring up everything. And on my desktop, I have the form that I want. Once again, this is please upload Excel, not PDF. I'd select open. It says upload complete, and you see that it's right here. So if I were to click this, I would download it I just uploaded. Economic outcomes tabs, these are the numbers where you enter in. If you don't provide it, you'll enter it as 0. You can scroll down, or you can use these jump to kind of jump to the different sections. There's the definitions and the descriptions. These all match the program guidelines. I'm jumping over to the attachments. Same concept with dragging a file over or selecting it for the budget, the P&L, and your IRS letter of determination. And the final tab is where you certify and agree. And then when you're ready, you hit submit. If you do submit and realize that you want to, there were a couple things you forgot, if you reach out to us within, I believe, like 2 hours, we could consider opening it so you can make those changes. Another reason why it's always best to submit early. Now, it can't be past that 5 p.m. April 4th deadline, but if you submit early, you realize, we can get it back open to you to make some quick edits. And don't let any problems with the portal stop you from working on the application if you're using those templates with the questions and the budget form. And it's 2 o'clock, so I'm going to stop there. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Catherine. And I just want to say that, the best possible thing you can do is download these guidelines and set up a Word doc, get all of your application done, answer all those questions, edit, revise. And then when you're ready, you just cut and paste each section into the portal. And by doing that, you've really done your hardest work first. I also wanted to answer that quick question because I think it's really important. That these funds can only be used for project-related expenses. And what about staff for bookkeeping? And all of that is project-related. So your staff time for doing outreach, your staff time for tracking, for bookkeeping, all of those are project-related expenses, like your trainer, like your consultants, like the venue where you're holding the workshop. So those are project-related expenses, and that want to make sure that that was really clear. I don't have anything more. Thank you on behalf of WSMA for your interest in these funds. We're excited to be able to serve urban communities. Reach out if you have any questions. Make sure you include both Catherine and me, and that way we can not drop any of the balls, make sure we answer your questions. Super excited to see you all here. Look forward to hearing from you and seeing your applications. All right, take care. Have a great day.